They trifled with us today. We blew them away. They should not have done that today. Those are the words of the President of the United States, after Iranian forces attacked 3 American Navy destroyers in the Strait of Hormuz on the night of May 7, 2026. And then, when a reporter asked Donald Trump whether the ceasefire was over, he said something that stopped rooms full of national security analysts, military officials, and foreign policy experts dead in their tracks. He called it a love tap. It was just a love tap, Trump told ABC News. Iran launched missiles, drones, and small boats at 3 American guided missile destroyers, the USS Mason, 2 others. IRGC forces threw everything at those ships in a coordinated multi-weapon assault in one of the most strategically consequential waterways on Earth. And the President of the United States called it a love tap. And then, in the same conversation, he delivered a warning that was anything but casual.
If there's no ceasefire, you're not going to have to know. You're just going to have to look at one big glow coming out of Iran. One big glow. 2 statements, 24 hours apart, from the same man, about the same war, about the same country. A love tap. And one big glow. That is where the Iran war stands on May 9, 2026. And today we are going through every single detail of what happened in those 24 hours. What Iran did, what America did, what Trump said, and what one big glow actually means for the 90 million people living in Iran and the 8 billion people living on a planet that gets 20% of its oil through the Strait of Hormuz. Welcome back. This is the most dangerous 24-hour period of the Iran war so far. Let's get into it. Let's start with what actually happened on the night of May 7th, going into May 8th, 2026. Because the facts of the attack, stripped of Trump's characterization of it, are extraordinary. 3 United States Navy warships were operating in the Strait of Hormuz. Guided missile destroyers, Arleigh Burke-class vessels, 510 feet long, equipped with the most advanced naval combat systems in the world. Each one armed with standard missile interceptors, Tomahawk cruise missiles, deck guns, torpedoes, and the Aegis combat system, one of the most capable integrated air defense platforms ever built. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy launched a coordinated multi-domain attack against all 3 ships simultaneously. Missiles, drones, small boats. Not one weapon system, 3, launched together, from multiple directions, designed to overwhelm the defensive systems of the American vessels by forcing them to track and respond to threats arriving from different vectors at different speeds. This is the doctrine that Iran has been developing for decades, the swarm strategy applied to a multi-domain assault. Don't fight the American Navy with a bigger navy. Fight it with so many different threats, from so many different directions, that its defensive systems are taxed beyond their designed capacity. U.S. Central Command confirmed the attack. It released a photograph of the USS Mason operating in the Mideast, one of the 3 targeted vessels. CENTCOM's statement confirmed that Iranian forces had launched missiles, drones, and small boats at the 3 ships, and that American forces had retaliated with what it called self-defense strikes on Iranian military facilities near the Strait of Hormuz. Here is the critical detail that both sides are choosing to emphasize differently. No American ships were hit. Iran's coordinated multi-domain attack, missiles, drones, and small boats, against 3 of the most advanced warships in the world, failed to strike any of them. U.S. forces successfully defended against the entire assault. American forces then carried out retaliatory strikes on Iranian military bases near Iranian ports in the Strait region. Iran reported that the American strikes killed at least 1 sailor and injured 10 others aboard a cargo vessel that caught fire during the engagement. It was not immediately clear if this vessel was one of the 2 Iranian tankers that U.S. forces had separately struck earlier. CENTCOM confirmed firing on 2 Iranian-flagged tankers that had attempted to dock at a Gulf of Oman port in violation of the American blockade. 10 Iranian sailors wounded, 5 missing, 1 cargo vessel on fire, 2 Iranian tankers disabled.
This is the exchange of fire that Donald Trump called a love tap. Let's talk about the phrase love tap, because it is either the most strategically calculated piece of communication Donald Trump has produced in this war, or it is the most dangerously reckless, possibly both. When Trump told ABC News that Iran's attack on 3 American destroyers was just a love tap, he was making a choice. He could have condemned the attack in strong terms. He could have described it as an act of war. He could have announced immediate, severe escalation. He could have used language that matched the military gravity of what had actually happened. Instead, he used a phrase that conveys dismissiveness, minimization, almost contempt. Love tap means, you hit us but it didn't hurt. You tried to scare us but we're not scared. Your attack was so ineffective that it barely registers as a serious military event. From a purely domestic political communication standpoint, this serves Trump well. Americans are already paying $4.56 per gallon for gas. The last thing Trump needs is for the Iran conflict to look like it is escalating into something more dangerous and more expensive. Love tap reassures American consumers. This is under control. Iran tried something.
We handled it. The ceasefire is still on.
The ceasefire is going. It's in effect, Trump told the reporter. Even after American forces struck Iranian military facilities, even after Iranian missiles targeted American destroyers, even after a cargo vessel caught fire and sailors were killed, the ceasefire is in effect. Rubio backed this framing at the Vatican, where he was meeting with Pope Leo XIV. The ceasefire is holding, Rubio said. Iran trifled with us. They got blown up. But here is the problem with the love tap framing, and it is a problem that Iran identified immediately and exploited. Iran's foreign ministry called the American strikes hostile and said they violated the ceasefire. Foreign Minister Arakchi posted on social media, "Every time a diplomatic solution is on the table, the U.S. opts for a reckless military adventure." Iran is using America's own ceasefire claims against it. America says the ceasefire is still on.
Iran says America violated the ceasefire.
If both sides are claiming the ceasefire is violated by the other, and both sides are simultaneously insisting the ceasefire continues, what exactly is a ceasefire? And here's the deeper strategic tension that the love tap framing creates. If America calls Iran's attack on 3 Navy destroyers a love tap, if America makes it clear that this level of Iranian aggression is acceptable, manageable, and not worth escalating over, then Iran has just established a new baseline for what it can do without triggering American escalation. Missiles at American warships, drones at American warships, small boats attacking American warships. Love tap. What does Iran do next, knowing that this is where the love tap line sits? Now let's talk about the other half of Trump's communication, the half that is not a love tap. If there's no ceasefire, you're not going to have to know.
You're just going to have to look at one big glow coming out of Iran.
One big glow. This phrase is not casual. It is not accidental. It is a specific, deliberate, and unmistakable reference to what happens to a country when it is subjected to the full destructive power of the United States military. The imagery of a glow, of a country lit from within by explosions, by fire, by the kind of bombardment that can be seen from space, is a threat of total, overwhelming military devastation. It is the language of round 2. Not Project Freedom, not a targeted strike on a military facility. A campaign of destruction that would make Operation Epic Fury look like a preliminary exercise. One big glow communicates several things simultaneously. To Iran, the next level of American military action will not be selective strikes on specific facilities. It will be comprehensive. It will be devastating. It will end the argument. To American voters, the president is in control.
The soft option,
The love tap, has been offered. If Iran doesn't take it, the alternative is beyond anything seen so far. But that's Iran's choice. To the world watching oil markets, the current instability, $4.56 gas,
$112 oil, 20,000 trapped sailors, could become something dramatically worse if the diplomatic process collapses. Get a deal done. And to the national security community in Washington, which has been watching this war with increasing concern, the president is personally involved in this escalation ladder. The love tap and the big glow are both his language, both his choices. Here is the military reality that sits beneath Trump's phrase. One big glow would require resuming and vastly expanding Operation Epic Fury, the air campaign that has already struck Iranian military facilities, nuclear sites, and government buildings over 67 days of conflict. Expanding it to produce the glow Trump describes would mean sustained, comprehensive airstrikes on Iranian military infrastructure across the country. Strikes on energy facilities, the oil refineries, the power plants, the fuel depots, that would shut down Iran's civilian economy. Potential strikes on the Iranian nuclear program's remaining facilities. And all of this in a country of 90 million people, with a military that has demonstrated it can hit American ships with missiles and drones, with a supreme leader who has called Hormuz as precious as an atomic bomb, and with a population that has been told for 47 years that America is the great enemy. One big glow is not a military plan. It is a communication, a warning, a line in the sand. But lines in the sand have a way of being tested, and Iran's calculation, based on 67 days of war and the demonstrated American tolerance for love taps, may be that the line is further away than it looks. Let's step back from the rhetoric and look at what actually happened militarily in those 24 hours. Because the gap between Trump's framing and the operational reality is significant. Iran attacked 3 American destroyers in the Strait of Hormuz, with missiles, drones, and small boats, simultaneously, in a coordinated assault. No American ships were hit. This is important. The Aegis combat systems on American destroyers are extraordinary. Their ability to track and intercept multiple simultaneous threats is genuinely remarkable. The fact that 3 ships successfully defended against a coordinated multi-domain assault by the IRGC Navy demonstrates both American technological capability and the skill of American naval crews. But here is what the successful defense also demonstrates. Iran was willing to attack 3 American destroyers in the Strait of Hormuz during a declared ceasefire, and it was willing to accept the consequences. The retaliatory strikes on its facilities, the killed and wounded sailors, as the cost of making that attack. Iran made a rational military calculation. Attack 3 destroyers, demonstrate that we can threaten American vessels in these waters, absorb the retaliation, and see how America responds. America's response: love tap, ceasefire still on, waiting for Iran's deal response, tells Iran exactly where the threshold is. Iran can attack American warships and America will call it a love tap and say the ceasefire is still on. That information has strategic value for Tehran. Meanwhile, the U.S. continued its own offensive actions. CENTCOM struck 2 Iranian tankers attempting to transit in violation of the blockade. U.S. forces struck Iranian military facilities near ports in the Strait region. Saudi Arabia's refusal to support Project Freedom was confirmed, a significant diplomatic blow, as Saudi Arabia's cooperation would have given the American naval escort operation much stronger regional legitimacy. And the oil spill. Satellite imagery reviewed by the Associated Press shows what appears to be a massive oil slick in the Persian Gulf emanating from Karg Island, Iran's main crude oil export terminal. The slick covers approximately 71 square kilometers, 27 square miles. Ami Daniel, CEO of maritime intelligence firm Windward AI, estimated that roughly 80,000 barrels of oil has spilled from Karg Island since the slick was first detected. The satellite images show oil still leaking from the terminal. 80,000 barrels of oil, spreading across the Persian Gulf, from Iran's main oil export facility.
The environmental catastrophe unfolding in the Persian Gulf is getting almost no coverage. But the 71-square-kilometer oil slick is real, documented by satellite, and growing. This is the war that Trump is calling a love tap. Underneath all of the military exchange, the love tap, the retaliatory strikes, the destroyed tankers, the oil spill, there is a diplomatic process that is simultaneously the most important thing happening and the least reported. Secretary of State Marco Rubio was in Rome on May 8th, meeting with Italian Foreign Minister Tajani, and then with Pope Leo XIV at the Vatican. Between those meetings, he told reporters, "We should know something today. We're expecting a response from them. We'll see what the response entails. The hope is it's something that can put us into a serious process of negotiation. We're expecting a response today." Iran's foreign ministry spokesman Esmail Baghai said Iran was reviewing messages from Pakistan being the primary mediator, but that Iran has not yet reached a conclusion and no response has been given to the U.S. side. The proposed deal, as reported by multiple outlets, includes Iran agreeing to pause nuclear enrichment, the U.S. lifting sanctions and releasing frozen Iranian funds, both sides easing restrictions on transit through the Strait of Hormuz. These three elements represent a significant concession framework from both sides. Iran gives up, temporarily, its nuclear enrichment capability, which is its most valuable strategic asset. America gives up, temporarily, the sanctions architecture it has spent 47 years building, which is its primary economic leverage. And both sides give up, partially, control over the strait, which is Iran's current most powerful leverage and America's most pressing economic concern. The framework, if implemented, would reopen the strait to commercial traffic, reducing oil prices, release frozen Iranian assets, providing economic relief to Tehran, establish a nuclear monitoring mechanism to address Washington's core security concern, and create the conditions for a broader peace negotiation to begin. Pakistani Prime Minister Sharif described Pakistan's mediation effort as being in continuous contact with Iran and the United States, day and night. Pakistani Foreign Minister Dar spoke directly with Iranian Foreign Minister Arakchi on May 8th. Pakistan says a deal is close. Rubio says he expects a response today. Iran says it hasn't concluded yet, and Trump says, love tap for now. One big glow if there's no deal. The distance between those two statements is the distance between peace and the most devastating American military campaign since the Gulf War. Let's be direct about what one big glow actually means, and whether it is a realistic possibility or a negotiating bluff. Trump's track record in this war suggests both. He has made escalatory threats that he followed through on. Operation Epic Fury was itself the product of exactly this kind of escalatory language, eventually executed. He has also made escalatory threats that he stepped back from. Project Freedom was announced with enormous fanfare and paused after 48 hours. The one big glow threat is real in the sense that American military capability to devastate Iran exists and has already been partially demonstrated. The strikes of February 28th destroyed significant Iranian military and nuclear infrastructure. A resumed, expanded campaign, with the targeting constraints removed and the full weight of American air power applied, would cause damage to Iran's military, economy, and infrastructure that would dwarf anything seen in the first round. But here is what one big glow cannot do. It cannot reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Destroying Iran's military does not move the sea mines it has already laid. It does not restore the navigation systems disrupted by Iranian electronic warfare. It does not make shipping companies willing to route billion-dollar tankers through waters where mines float and IRGC remnants may still operate. Military force can destroy. It cannot reopen. And here is the global consequence of one big glow that Trump's phrase does not capture. A resumed, comprehensive American military campaign against Iran, at a scale beyond Operation Epic Fury, would spike oil prices immediately.
$150 per barrel is a reasonable floor. $200 is possible. Gas in America at $7 or $8 per gallon. Global food prices spiking. Supply chains disrupting. Airlines canceling routes. A global recession becoming probable rather than possible. The love tap was $4.56 gas. One big glow is what comes after. Iran's advisor called Hormuz as precious as an atomic bomb. And he's right. Not because Iran has nuclear weapons, but because control over the world's most critical oil route is a form of economic nuclear capability. Threatening to blow it up doesn't reopen it. It just makes the explosion bigger. Trump knows this. His advisors know this. Which is why the love tap language and the big glow language coexist. Both are real. Both are options. Neither is inevitable. The deal, the framework that Rubio is waiting for Iran to respond to, is the alternative to both. 3 American destroyers. Attacked by Iranian missiles, drones, and small boats. Trump called it a love tap, then warned of one big glow, then said the ceasefire is still on. In the same 24 hours, 2 Iranian tankers disabled, Iranian sailors killed, a retaliatory U.S. strike on Iranian military facilities, a 71-square-kilometer oil spill from Karg Island, Saudi Arabia refusing to back America's plan to reopen the strait, and Rubio at the Vatican waiting for Iran's answer. This is the Iran war on May 9, 2026. A love tap and one big glow. And a deal somewhere in between that is the only path to avoiding both. Share this video, hit like, subscribe, because Iran's response to the U.S. deal proposal is coming today. We'll cover it the moment it drops. See you there.